In a quiet neighborhood where the sun rose gently each morning, Karen cherished her peaceful mornings with a steaming cup of coffee on her porch. She loved listening to the sounds of nature, the rustling leaves and chirping birds. But her tranquility was severely disrupted by her neighbor's clucking backyard chickens. The loud crowing of the rooster echoed through her yard, breaking the calm she so deeply valued. Every morning, as the sky turned light pink, Karen would step outside and shout at the chickens, hoping to drive them away. "Can you keep it down over there?" she would yell, her voice ringing through the neighborhood. Little did she know that her angry shouts were not only waking her but also stirring up an unexpected response from the rooster. Instead of retreating in silence, the rooster seemed to take Karen's complaints as a challenge. Each time he heard her voice, he would crow even louder, as if trying to outdo her. This strange back and forth became a daily routine that left Karen feeling frustrated and overwhelmed. As days turned into weeks, Karen began to wonder if this feathered neighbor had taken it upon himself to make her life miserable. After all, noise pollution was a serious issue, wasn't it? But perhaps she was unwittingly part of the problem too. As the first rays of sunlight streamed into her kitchen, Karen would wake each morning to prepare for her daily routine. After brewing a pot of coffee, she would take her favorite mug, adorned with cheerful daisies, and settle onto her porch. In those quiet moments, she looked forward to sipping her warm drink while enjoying the symphony of nature around her. However, that peace was short-lived. Just as she sunk into the calm, the piercing crow of the rooster shattered the tranquility like a loud alarm clock. "Not again," she would exclaim, slamming down her mug in frustration. It was a scene that played out every day, her precious morning ritual interrupted by an unyielding melody of rooster crows. Determined to reclaim her mornings, Karen would shout from her porch, "Can you keep it down over there?" Her voice echoed down the street as if challenging the rooster to respond. Yet every time she raised her voice, the rooster seemed more than ready to answer back, answering her shouts with its own triumphant cries. This strange competition turned into a chaotic routine for Karen. Instead of finding peace, she was left with mounting irritation. Each morning became a battle of wills between woman and bird, one filled with noise instead of silence, leaving her feeling even more agitated as days rolled into weeks. While Karen was battling the noisy rooster, her neighbor, Lily, was enjoying a different experience altogether. For Lily, the joy of raising chickens brought life and excitement to her backyard. Every morning, she would step outside to greet her feathered friends with a smile. The chickens clucked happily as they roamed freely, pecking at the ground for tasty treats and basking in the warm sun. Lily found great satisfaction in caring for her chickens. She loved watching them grow and thrive, each one with its distinct personality. The rooster, with its proud stance and vibrant feathers, was a source of pride for her family. To Lily, his crowing was not just noise, it signified the start of a new day filled with possibilities. As she tended to them, she often chuckled at their antics, how they fluffed their feathers or chased each other around the yard. These moments brought her family closer together as they shared laughter over the quirky behaviors of their pets. Even when Karen yelled from across the way, Lily remained unfazed. She believed that raising chickens was part of their dream to live sustainably and connect with nature. For Lily, the clucking and crowing were reminders of the joy that came with farm life in a suburban setting, contrasting sharply with Karen's growing frustration over her morning routine disrupted by these lively creatures. As the days wore on, a curious change began to unfold in the rooster's behavior. It seemed to develop an uncanny ability to recognize Karen's voice. Each time she yelled from her porch, the rooster would perk up, its head cocked to one side, as if it were intently listening. Then, without fail, it would respond with a loud and confident crow. At first, Karen found this reaction puzzling. "Why is it only crowing when I shout?" she wondered, feeling increasingly frustrated. It was as if the bird had made it its mission to answer her calls. The morning air filled with its triumphant cries as if the rooster was laughing at her complaints. With each passing day, their peculiar interaction continued. Karen's shouts turned into a sort of ritual, she would shout her displeasure only to be met with the rooster crowing back louder than before. It became clear that her vocal protests only amplified the bird's determination to make itself heard. This unexpected dynamic left Karen feeling trapped in a bizarre cycle where her comments fueled the very noise she sought to silence. Rather than curbing the rooster's crowing, her yells seemed to awaken a playful spirit within it. The mornings that once held promise now felt like an endless loop of clashing wills, amplifying both annoyance and bewilderment for Karen. With each passing day, Karen's frustration grew even more intense. It dawned on her that the rooster seemed to react solely to her voice. Whenever she yelled from her porch, the rooster would perk up and respond with a loud crow, as if he were intentionally targeting her complaints. This realization made her feel both bewildered and singled out. "Is this bird doing this just to annoy me?" she thought, an uneasy feeling settling in her stomach. It felt like a personal vendetta against her peace and quiet. No longer was it just an annoyance, it felt almost like harassment. The once peaceful mornings now transformed into a relentless battle between woman and bird. Karen began to dread the moments when she had to step outside. Each time she opened the door, she braced herself for the inevitable crowing that would follow her displeasure. The rooster's increasing boldness only heightened her irritation. It was as if he relished the attention, responding louder each time she raised her voice. Feeling targeted added to Karen's growing anxiety about the situation. Rather than finding solace in her morning ritual, she felt trapped in a never-ending loop of noise and emotional turmoil, questioning whether she'd ever reclaim her cherished moments of peace again. Feeling increasingly overwhelmed by the rooster's persistent crowing, Karen began to explore the concept of harassment. She started to justify her frustration, believing it wasn't just noise but rather a targeted attack on her peace. In her mind, the rooster wasn't merely responding to her complaints, he was actively seeking to disturb her mornings and disrupt her well-being. Determined to make her case, Karen began documenting her experiences. She noted the time each morning when the crowing would start and how it specifically coincided with her yelling. It felt like a pattern, a control tactic used by the bird that left her emotionally drained. "This is harassment," she declared to herself, convinced that the situation was out of hand. In her quest for peace, Karen decided to bring this up with the Homeowners Association, HOA. However, when she presented her concerns about the noisy rooster and claimed it was harassment, she was met with laughter and skepticism. The HOA made it clear that they considered the situation merely a cause and effect issue. Her shouting led to louder crowing, and therefore no action would be taken. Disheartened by their lack of understanding, Karen felt as if she were losing a battle not just with a bird but also with a system that dismissed her feelings. This realization deepened her frustration, pushing her closer to finding alternative ways to cope in hopes of reclaiming some semblance of peace. Desperate to find a solution, Karen turned to the Homeowners Association, HOA, for help, hoping they would support her claims about the disruptive noise. She scheduled an appointment to present her case, armed with notes and examples of how the rooster's crowing had impacted her daily life. As she sat in the conference room, surrounded by HOA board members, she felt a mix of hope and anxiety. Karen explained how the rooster's loud crows seemed to target her specifically, disrupting her peaceful mornings and affecting her well-being. However, as she spoke, she noticed skeptical looks exchanged among the board members. When it was time for them to respond, their demeanor shifted from concern to dismissal. After a brief discussion, the HOA decided that the rooster's crowing did not qualify as noise pollution or a disturbance under their rules. Instead, they labeled it as cause and effect, emphasizing that her own yelling was provoking the bird's reactions. Their conclusion left Karen feeling invalidated and frustrated, as if her concerns were trivialized. Disappointed by their ruling, Karen realized that she had little recourse to address the situation. This setback amplified her feelings of isolation and helplessness. With nowhere else to turn, Karen contemplated her next steps, desperate to regain control over her mornings and find a way to coexist peacefully with her noisy neighbor's rooster. Determined to find a way to neutralize the rooster's crowing, Karen decided it was time for a change of tactics. Instead of yelling at the bird, she would try something different. The next morning, as she stepped out onto her porch, she chose to whisper instead. Maybe if I just speak softly, she thought, the rooster won't feel the need to respond. As she settled into her usual spot with her coffee, Karen took a calming breath and began to speak quietly to herself about the day ahead. To her surprise, the first few moments were free of loud crows. It seemed like her plan might actually work. As she sipped her coffee and enjoyed the tranquility, she felt a glimmer of hope. However, that fleeting moment soon faded. While whispering may have given her a sense of peace initially, it quickly became apparent that the rooster was still on high alert. Soon after she spoke softly, he let out a loud crow anyway, as if sensing the disruption in his routine. Karen sighed in exasperation. It was clear that the rooster wouldn't be silenced so easily. The whispers didn't provide the relief she had hoped for. Instead, the battle continued in this unexpected way. Struggling to find another approach, she felt discouraged but resolute as she began to consider yet another tactic for dealing with her noisy neighbor's feathered friend. As Karen continued her whispering experiment, she found the situation turning oddly humorous despite her frustration. Each time she softly greeted the morning or calmly spoke to herself, the rooster would initially remain quiet, as if pondering what was going on. However, it wasn't long before his silence turned into a loud crow that echoed through the yard, seemingly mocking her attempts at tranquility. Why is it crying out like that? Karen thought with a mix of confusion and laughter. It felt as if the rooster knew exactly what she was trying to do and decided to play his part in an ongoing comedy show. Each time she whispered, its crows grew louder and more theatrical, almost as if he were responding to an audience rather than just to her voice. Neighbors walking by chuckled at the sight of Karen trying so desperately to maintain her composure while still managing a calm demeanor. To them, this battle between woman and bird looked like an amusing game. The rooster's bold proclamations every time she tried to speak softly made it clear, he wasn't backing down. Karen couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all amid her frustration. Here she was, trying to achieve peace through whispers, only to be met with a rooster that reveled in his role as the loudest farmhand on the block. This humorous twist did little to solve her problem but added a light-hearted element to her daily struggle, and perhaps a bit of perspective she hadn't considered before. As the days turned into weeks, Karen began to reflect on the unusual connection that had developed between her and the rooster. What started as a source of frustration had transformed into a peculiar bond marked by their daily interactions. Each morning, she would step outside, and the rooster would respond with its signature crow, creating a routine that felt oddly intimate. Karen found herself laughing at how they had become entangled in this noisy dance, her whispers acting as cues for his loud proclamations. It was almost as though they were partners in a comedic play, each aware of the other's role in their ongoing performance. When she whispered softly, it felt like an invitation for him to join in, and when he crowed back, it seemed he was playfully reminding her of his presence. This realization brought Karen some comfort. While she still desired peace and quiet during her mornings, she began to see the rooster not just as a nuisance but as a lively character in her daily life. Rather than viewing their relationship solely through the lens of annoyance, she could appreciate the humor and unpredictability he brought to her routine. In that light, Karen considered that perhaps their connection was a reminder to embrace the unexpected moments in life. Even if it wasn't the tranquility she longed for, there was still joy to be found in sharing these mornings with such an animated companion. As Karen settled into her new understanding of the rooster, she began to recognize the broader lesson at play in her community. The dynamic between her and the bird highlighted how frustration could quickly escalate without patience and empathy. Her initial reactions, complaining and yelling, only deepened her sense of isolation, whereas embracing the absurdity of the situation fostered an unexpected connection. In her journey, Karen learned that not everything in life could be controlled or silenced, and that sometimes it was necessary to adapt and find humor in chaos. This realization made her more understanding of her neighbor, Lily, who cherished the lively presence of chickens in her yard. Perhaps others, too, had their own struggles hidden beneath the surface that wouldn't be immediately apparent. Karen started to look at her mornings not just as a battleground with the rooster, but as an opportunity to practice patience and acceptance. This shift in perspective allowed her to forge a deeper sense of belonging within her community rather than feeling like an outsider battling for serenity. Ultimately, Karen found value in nurturing relationships instead of focusing solely on complaints. The unexpected connection with the rooster became a reminder of the importance of navigating life's quirks with grace. With a newfound commitment to understanding and patience, she stepped into each day with a smile, ready to face whatever the morning brought her way.